This video is brought to you by Glasshammer Gaming. Use the code CommandPhase to get an extra 5% off your models and hobby supplies. A link to their store is in the video description below. Hello and welcome to the Command Phase. My name is Mark and thank you so much for joining me. This past weekend I was lucky enough to get a ticket to the Age of Sigmar Realms Reforged event at Warhammer World and try out not only Age of Sigmar 4, but the new Spearhead format as well. Having never played Age of Sigmar before, I came away from the event extremely excited for what's to come, and I wanted to share my experience with you now about Spearhead, which I honestly think could be a game changer, not only as an entry point into Age of Sigmar, but a fun and quick standalone format. So without any further ado, let's get stuck in. Spearhead is a format that has been designed to be able to pick up a current Spearhead or Vanguard box and to be able to jump into a small and balanced game with these miniatures, which is honestly the biggest selling point here. Being able to pick up a box with a friend and jumping straight into this is perfect, not only to bring new people into the hobby, but you can also see how a new faction plays before expanding into the larger game format. For some people, they may fancy to paint up and play with some models from a different faction, but never wanted to build an entire army of them. Spearhead scratches that itch perfectly. I've seen this question a lot recently about whether the current Vanguard boxes are still okay to play this game at launch. As far as I'm aware, all of the current Vanguard boxes will be getting rebranded as Spearhead and have rules to play at launch, so you have nothing to worry about. If there is a box you like the look of that you want to build up and paint ready for launch, go for it. That even includes the Man Crusher mob for the Sons of Behemat, who will be becoming a Spearhead as well. Spearhead utilises the core rules module for Age of Sigmar 4 and a set of tailored Warscrolls for the units in each box. As a new player to Age of Sigmar, this felt like a great way to learn the basic rules of the game with the core rules all being there, plus getting to grips with the turns and phases, positioning, coherency, the updated weapon ranges, initiative rolls, and of course the infamous double turn. It honestly felt really easy to pick up the rules and understanding of the game. It felt like the perfect way to get up to speed and make the jump to the larger format a lot easier. In terms of the units themselves, the rules and keywords were slightly different in Spearhead compared to Age of Sigmar 4 from what I've seen both on the day and online. While the Warscrolls look the same to keep the consistent feel, a few abilities or keywords changed up from one game to the other to keep them balanced at this scale compared to the full version of Age of Sigmar. For example, the clan rats in Spearhead lose the crit auto wound ability on their rusty blade weapons and the command group benefits, but gain the reinforcements keyword on their datasheet, allowing them to have a replacement unit come onto the battlefield in your next movement phase if they were destroyed. The same goes for the Seraphon Croxagores. You only get access to the Drakebite Maul in the Spearhead format, albeit without the anti-infantry +1 rend ability. Plus, the Brutal Blows passive changed from adding 1 damage to the melee weapons if the unit has 10 or more models in, to their weapons having the crit 2 hits ability if the target has 5 or more models. So you can start to see the minor tweaks and changes here for the gameplay, but the core stats and weapon hit wound profiles look to be the same, so that at least helps to transfer the knowledge from this format to the full version should you wish to. Spearhead is played on a smaller size board, 22.4 inches by 30 inches, so a quarter of the size of a full battlefield or a typical Warcry sized board. This is perfect if you have a small amount of space. You'll also have a few pieces of terrain. The smaller pieces are mainly just for show, while the larger pieces are used for line of sight blocking and part of battle tactic objectives, which we'll discuss a little later in the video. There are also 2 sides to the current board that will be coming out with the launch box. On the one side of the board we have the Realm of Fire Akshi, while on the other is the Realm of Life Garan. Each of these sides have different objective layouts and symbols on them, which are worth noting for certain battle tactics you're trying to achieve. Plus twist cards for each of the battlefields which alter the gameplay each turn, alongside an underdog mechanic to help the player that's behind. Although if there is no current underdog, then it is typically down to a roll-off. This is something I did quite like. It's subtle enough to help make games feel closer without being excessive, Plus, in the game I played at the weekend, it actually became quite impactful. I was playing as the Lumineth Realm Lords against the Nighthaunt. I had a unit of Sentinels holding my right hand side objective and was charged by a unit of Chain Rasps, which I had whittled down a little in my shooting phase. After the first round of combat, we ended up having the same number of models left in each unit and the objective was being contested. My opponent ended up taking the double turn after winning the roll-off, and we got the Akshi Twist wreathed in smoke, which as the underdog I used on that objective to try and keep those Sentinels alive long enough to get some backup. With the luck of the dice, I managed to kill off one of their remaining 3 models while remaining unharmed myself, which swung the objective back in my favour. This was a pretty cool moment in the game, and I can imagine more interesting moments like this will come from these effects. One thing to note is the board size did feel a little small, as with a move and a good charge you could get to the other side of the board, at least with the long edge board deployment we had for the demo game. But with there only being 4 turns, getting stuck in fairly early is to be expected, and there is room for staging and countercharging and so on for some higher level plays, which excites me for this format. Plus, even though there was combat taking place in my game on turn 1, which in our time slot only got to the end of turn 2, we still had plenty of models left on the board and mission play options for the remaining rounds, which is a positive. Moving on to the battle tactics deck, and this was an aspect of the game I really enjoyed. Each force gets 12 cards each for the game, and you draw 3 in the first battle round. These split cards give you objectives to try and achieve each round to score you victory points, plus on the bottom half you have a really powerful command ability that could come in handy in a given situation you could use instead. This really adds to the decision making during the game of what would be more impactful for the current game state. Do you want the option of banking a victory point now, or to use a powerful ability foregoing that victory point to potentially swing the battle in your favour to gain more victory points in future turns? This risk and reward element really created some engaging gameplay, which even in my short experience helped my enjoyment of the game. If you don't feel you could achieve the battle tactic and command ability isn't that useful, you could discard this at the end of the battle round to draw a fresh 3, or save one for a key moment coming up. By not completing the objective, it certainly didn't feel like the command abilities were just a consolation. The last thing of note with these cards is if you win the priority roll and claim the infamous double turn, you can't draw your 3 cards unless you are the underdog and losing by 5 or more victory points, which was an interesting mechanic to experience for the first time. During my game, I went first, moving slightly out of our deployment zone to tag the middle objective with a unit of Wardens, which then subsequently got charged by the remaining Spirit Hosts, Knight of the Shrouds, and thankfully only 1 unit of Reapers thanks to a failed charge. After losing 4 models in combat thanks to some nice saving throws, the opponent decided to take the double turn, but thankfully for me I'd drawn the card with Raid as the battle tactic and Steel Defense as the command ability. As my forces were pretty much all tied up in combat, there wasn't any way I was going to achieve the battle tactic this round, and the command ability really helped a great deal, reducing the number of Warden casualties by 4 on the dice, which would have been crippling, and allowed the unit to strike back and take out the last remaining Spirit Host. So I just want to address the slight elephant in the room of the selling point of play it in a lunch break, which seems to be the most common thing we've heard throughout the marketing for Spearhead. We got given an hour to try out the game format with the armies already set up and the enhancements chosen for us to help us get us into the gameplay a lot quicker, but we only got to the end of turn 2. That being said, both myself and my opponents were brand new to Age of Sigmar, so there would obviously be time gained further down the line with more games being played and a greater understanding. If you take away the line about lunch breaks, as I honestly couldn't imagine taking my miniatures to work with me in the first place, I can see the game as being sub 1.5 hours fairly easily with more reps, which does make it a quicker game to play multiples of in an afternoon with your playgroup, or even in an evening without it getting really late. That, and you could get a little tournament done in a day fairly easily too, which I think is a big plus for the competitive scene. Honestly, my initial impressions of Spearhead from the tester game are really positive, especially with the incredible staff member hosting the table, who did an amazing job. I'm very disappointed in myself for forgetting his name, but he made the game extremely fun and engaging, explained the rules in a clear and concise way, and I came away having had an incredible experience and a real excitement to jump into Age of Sigmar. Spearhead feels like its own standalone game rather than just an entry point into Age of Sigmar. It's engaging, quick to set up and play with all the different factions, plus with all the cards and 2 boards, it certainly has some longevity to it. Honestly, this is a significant improvement to the combat patrol format for 40k, which feels more like an afterthought compared to Spearhead. This game I can see having their own tournaments and game nights fairly easily, and one that I know I'd be excited to jump into going forward. My main hope for this game is that Games Workshop continues to support it, with new boards and battle tactic cards in the future to keep the game fresh and have more variety over the lifespan of 4th edition. Hopefully this release isn't all they have for it. The biggest way I can show how impressed I was about the format was by grabbing the Seraphon Vanguard box the day after to get it ready for release, although knowing my lack of self-control, there may well be more boxes to come. Let me know in the comment section below what you've made of Age of Sigmar 4 and the Spearhead format so far. Is this a game you'd like to jump into yourself come release? I'd love to know. Plus, if you have any questions, pop them down in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer any that I can. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, please hit that like and subscribe button as it really helps the channel to grow. Thank you so much for watching the command phase, and I'll see you in the next video.